Survival on the land and ice. How to survive on the land and the ice. Survival means keeping yourself alive while out on the land or ice. Anybody can come upon a problem or a disaster. It can happen to anyone. Anything can cause your problem. That can be quite unexpected. A machine can break down, or sorry,
We're cutting in and out a little bit.
Really? I can't do anything about that.
Okay.
And as we hear, I'm sorry about the cutting in and out apparently, but I can't do anything about that. But he just said the weather is the boss. And turn the page, please. We will be going through some of these weather clouds talking. What they used them back then, how they used them back then, and how we use them today. Snow. What is the condition of the snow? Inuit used to use snow all the time. Landmarks. What are the indicators that can help you know where you are? Navigation. Navigation with stars, using the land and the snow. The grub box, your supplies. Clothing and sleeping bags. Search and rescue. So these 6 items will be what we will be going through today. We may have to come back to a particular item or skip back and forth as necessary. But that's the format that we're going to try to use today for this course. The 2 instructors today that will be speaking, I'm just facilitating this course. But these gentlemen will be doing the talking. Weather. Some of the communities have slightly different types of weather. Some with high mountains have different weather than the people that live in the flatland. Even though the north is essentially the same, it gets cold, it gets blizzards like sort of today, and it can get high wind, and we had a good blizzard in Jetaloo, and it can get high winds. Right now we have pretty high winds this morning, and snow comes, and it's here now, and then we know it rains as well. I'd like to talk about this a little bit more. In the Akviat area, in the Hall Beach area. Do you know the land down there? Nunang ataw na kayo mayaw ba? Nunang wako? No? In the Akviat Hall Beach area, you can pick up copies down there. Can you go get one for her? For him? In the Akviat and Hall Beach area, the land is extremely flat. The weather is different, a little bit different from up here, although there are some similarities. clouds talking. Jetaloo can talk about clouds talking. Good morning. This is how we're looking right now, like through, I think, a looking glass. We're peering in, peeking in, as older people. There are things behind us that we sort of know that are there, but we can't see them. And we generally look forward. And then we can look around, but that's how we basically see. Thank you, Simon, for reminding me about that. And as we peer, I had forgotten about that instruction. If an older person had come here and talked about a dangerous situation, I had no idea. No, I had an idea that I may have to talk about this at some point. And after going through an extremely dangerous situation, we get past that, and then we can get to talk about it. We were born in a different land. It's like a different world. If we turn this page, we used to have a whole different world. It's very different from what we experience today. The people that we remember, there are many people that we remember and knew when we were growing up. The world is completely different now, and we find it somewhat strange. Now, with the clouds in the sky, if we look up in the sky and look at clouds like this, it looks like they're whispery smoke, like wispy, smoky sky. But they're always coming down. They're continually coming down. If the weather is windy up there in the high altitude, this is what it looks like. This means it's windy in the high altitude. And they will take many days to come down. This high wind in the high altitude will take many days to come down to the ground. And we didn't have any instruments back then. We didn't write down what we knew. We experienced minus 40, 50 and 60, and we can't write in minus 40 and 50 and 60 out there, so we didn't use writing. We relied on oral histories, stories, and we would talk about what we saw. And then there are things that we have experienced that we carry along that we don't talk about. That's how we live. I almost died when I fell into the water once. My whole body was submerged. Please believe me, that is extremely scary and very dangerous. But it happened in a beautiful hunting place. There are beautiful places that will kill you. And if you have never experienced that, I'm telling you, it's true. Even though no matter how much, like I can yell at you and say it's true, never put yourself in danger. Those of us who are older, we're getting lax, like we're getting not as strong. We can't go to the beautiful places that we used to go to. And what we're trying to tell you here is people who are younger than we are. Hunting is beautiful, beautiful actually, it's great. But then it can suddenly become very dangerous. And because of that, we have to rely on what we know. And we are telling you what we know. It doesn't matter who you are. Like we know up to now, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or an old person or a young person. Certain rescues have become necessary for all walks of life. So we're trying to tell you about these things, these dangerous things. Like I said earlier, the years that I experienced, they are all in my mind right now, and my mind is sort of back in the past. 2 of my best friends went polar bear hunting. Both never came back once. They froze to death. In 1994, when it was open water, they were on a big boat and the bad weather came and they all died in just one night. There were 10 men on that big boat and only 2 survived. And many of us who helped in that situation in the searches, we remember that. He went by airplane searching, I went by boat searching for those men. And a lot of it makes our heart cry. I never wanted to go through that situation when I was a young person. Like I didn't want to bring out my emotions or feel like crying. But I have to tell the story so that you can understand better. There are dangerous things out there. And to get back to the cloud a little bit, clouds. When we are planning to go hunting, look at the clouds. Sometimes they're not as accurate as they used to be, but a lot of times the weather comes that we're expecting. I'm just talking about just the crust, the tiny little top of what needs to be known. We're just going to have to touch on these topics. They're a lot more comprehensive. But please believe what we are saying. Like, our heart cries for these people, and we feel compassion for other people, and that's how we are. And it puts a lump in your throat sometimes. Our bodies are quite very breakable, and our mind too, and a lot of our emotions will affect our body. So this picture is windy in high altitudes. Right now, that kind of weather is close to the land right now. That's why we are windy. So this weather that we're expecting started in the high altitude. Good morning. I don't speak very loud. It's just me. I've never had a loud voice. This is sort of like my day timer thing. It doesn't have any numbers. It's like I use it like you should use it like a calendar in a way. And right now we're experiencing the fall. Caribou start migrating in the fall. So I basically use this as a numberless calendar, which is the weather, I guess. And that's how I look at it. You know my name, I'm Simon Nattaq, and we're talking about survival. The first question, before daylight today, how many of you went outside or looked outside before daylight? How many of you tried to see if there were stars out? If you see one star, did you see one star, the first one that appeared? There is one star that appears first before daylight comes. Did you see it? There is just one bright star that appears first. That's why we have to look outside. Before we turn on the radio, look outside, go outside. If we're going to learn about the weather in the Inuit way, get out as soon as you wake up. And that star was particularly bright this morning. And that star starts the day. It's a good a signal post if you're out there somewhere, that big bright star. It has had many different names in different communities. So look up in the morning and see if you can still see that bright star every morning and see what the sky looks like. Even if you're not going anywhere or if you're just going to go to work later, do it. And that's what we were always told. When you see many stars up there, and a lot of time they'll be flickering a lot, the stars, they're saying, the stars speak that it's good weather. When the stars are flickering like that, it means it's really good weather up there. And during the day, the wind will come later if the stars are flickering. Even though we don't feel any wind, it's going to come later on in the day. That's what we were told in the past. We were told always be aware of what's around us. Like we can only look forward, so turn your head around and we can look around better. And be aware of your environment. There are many contents to this environment. In the white culture, they even have environment workers. And Inuit are very knowledgeable about the environment. So I've basically documented what used to be used in the past and put them down. I'm trying to survive on out on the land or out on the water. And as we move into later fall and the ice will start to form, and there'll be really thin ice at first. We were told to always be careful when we were traveling by dog teams. Make sure you check the ice first before you travel on it, to make sure that nothing will happen to you. And we would work with the dogs, and the dogs would also help us about dangerous areas. When nothing is wrong, the dogs are in a tight pack like you all here. If you're in thin ice and you're in a bunch like that, you'll fall through. And in the past, we would look at the dogs, because they knew once they're on thin ice, the dogs would spread out on their own, because they knew that it's not safe to be close to each other. And then we would realize that we're on thin ice because of the dogs. It'd be good to show that as an example, but that's one of the things that we were told, and it still works today. Survival has many things in it. This compass, we don't carry it everywhere. We've only been able to survive because of being able to make fire. Oh, I thought he was holding a compass. Sorry, it's a candle. As men, we use kodlets, but I didn't bring one here. It's just an example I'm using as a candle. As long as you have a little bit of fire going, then you can warm up. This little candle can warm up a small area. That has helped save people, even though we don't have heaters or anything like that. We used animal fat to produce fire, and it's still usable today. If we're out there, and if we get stuck out there, as long as we have some animal fat, then we can make a fire and it can help us survive. I'm just keeping this short. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that. Sometimes we used to be too intimidated to ask questions to older people as we were growing up. And our mother would tell us what to do for our future. We were always told to be aware of what's around us. Our weather used to be more consistent back then, like the north wind used to be like the north wind. And if I'm speaking about the environment, I would say that before I see any forecast, I would look at the clouds. If I see clouds coming from the mainland, big clouds coming from the mainland, that means wind may be coming. That's what the cloud is telling you, if it's over the mainland. Dark clouds in the distance, near, like above the mainland. would be north wind or land wind coming soon from that direction. That's something that should be taught. It's one of the good forecasters. If you see dark clouds forming over the mainland, then we have to be really aware of that. If you look towards the mainland in this winter, you can probably see it happening. If you see long clouds over the ocean, the seaside, it's telling you something too, as to where the wind direction is going to be coming from. Where would you think the wind would be coming from if you see thin clouds over the water? Anybody know? It means there's a southeast wind coming. Southeast winds are they usually produce these thin, long clouds. So in the morning, look at them, see if you can see them. If you'll have a real good future in the Arctic if you learn these things and start utilizing them. And the third one, it's sort of first, but kind of. It's the east wind. What kind of clouds would the east wind produce? Anybody know? What kind of clouds do we get from the east usually? Wearing this, it'd be basically that color, dark clouds coming from the east. It's like it covers the whole world. The east wind. East clouds brought in by the east wind. And then the fourth direction, how we say it where I'm from, we call it Akinnayaktok down where I'm from. It's the west wind. Where is west? And the clouds, what kind of clouds come out of the west wind? You probably hear on the radio that scattered clouds. That's sort of the term, but not really. It's sort of wind from the sun direction. The west wind is usually from where the sun is, and that can get really dangerous. The cloud, what kind of clouds would we expect from there, that direction? This is what I'm talking about. These are the clouds that I'm talking about, the west wind clouds. That's what we used to be told. We never used any instruments or phones or anything like that, and we didn't have any writing instruments. We didn't have any paper, but once in a long while we would see something on paper. And our pencils we used that until they were very short. But even though we were living like that, we didn't want things that we didn't know about. Sometimes we would experience cold. Sometimes it would get really hot and we'd be really happy. Anybody can experience a disaster. It can happen to anybody, you or me. I have experienced. I experienced something where I was following somebody else's trail, and this has happened to other people as well. The weather will suddenly change, and although Inuit are said to be very knowledgeable, these things happen to us too. Back in it was a while back, I was following somebody else's tracks on Skidoo, and I fell through the ice and fell under the ice. I was submerged under the ice. It's very blue down there. I saw that. None of us wants to fall into the water. I had to experience that, being underwater. And I didn't have any more abilities then. It was like I couldn't do anything. I became unable to do anything. It's like I was it was as if I was a piece of paper on the water, and something or someone grabbed me and put me on the ice. And there are so many things that can happen to us out there. Like as a real Inuk, and a problem arises suddenly. If it happens suddenly and you're caught off guard, that happens. That is what we should be aware of, that it can happen very suddenly. Even though you're adults and know things, we have to be always aware of our surroundings and don't just look forward. You look back too. Always look back too. Like we travel these days in one direction, and we just look in one direction is forward, and we hardly ever turn our heads. We're not very aware as we should be these days. We were told not to travel like that. If we're out on the land, we always have to be aware of our whole surroundings all around us, like a 360 degree, all around us. Always look around everywhere. When I first came here and wasn't really aware of the land or didn't know the land, I would go caribou hunting over there. And my hunting buddy would go first, and I would try to look at the trail by following my hunting partner. I'll talk about this more later. So, following my hunting partner, I would go to where he was going. And I'll talk about this again afterwards, when we break up into groups. Or when we're talking about snow, I'll talk more about this. I followed directions, local directions. I would be moving forward, but then I would always look back. And we can never just move forward. And when we were coming back, it got dark. And my partner wanted to camp, so we can travel during the daytime instead. So if we keep aware of everything around us, that'll keep us safer. And I decided I'm going to try and make it back on my own. And I'd never been around here before, hunting around here before, and you couldn't see Jetaloo. And I told my partner I'm going to go back. And I was first. And we were heading back, and after it got dark, I was second in line again. And remembering what I was told, and following the route that I followed, I thought I would just go through the landmarks that I saw earlier. I just followed that, and Jetaloo eventually appeared, and my partner appeared afterwards too. We can talk about this afterwards. What to do if we are met with a dangerous situation. I'll talk more about this later, but what I mentioned earlier about falling into the water and getting submerged, and like how did I survive that? I'll talk more about that a little bit later on when I talk about snow. Sometimes we unexpectedly get into bad weather. It's all part of, you have to be aware where you are and where the flat lands are and where the other lands are. And following my calendar, I'm just telling you some of the things that I know, things that I used to be told. I had no idea I would have to use the things that I was told. There are people here that have grown up here and they're going to be very knowledgeable about the environment. There are lots of questions that could be asked about that. Maybe if people start asking questions, we can talk some more. But I'd like to stop here for now. Yes, thank you.
I know we have weather station. We can go on like Windy TY or Wonderground or CBC. Even though there was somebody told me a story, because we respect our elders, we respect our grandfathers. I think he's smiling already. I think one of those things that people really look out for the knowledge about people, and we ask them. Even though we have weather station, even though we have computers, and sometimes I check the weather before I'm planning to go out. But Simon says, do this, right? Simon says, check the weather every morning. We will be observing the weather every morning. And it says here that clouds are talking. You know the sign language, ABC? Even though you're not hearing it, you can read ABC. You can read the cloud. If you start observing them, you can start reading the cloud. He asked you a question. He asked you 4 questions. Did anybody answer these 4 questions? No. If you know, observe them, somebody could have answered this question. He asked those 4 questions. Where's the north coming from? Where's the south coming from? Where's the east coming from? Where's the west coming from? Those 4 clouds, they say something. They're talking. So that's why, even though we have computers, we got weather station, radio, all that stuff, and cell phone, I can check my weather in here. Yes, but if we observe them, we can learn them.
Just to add, during good weather, we can do lots of things during good weather. When it's bad weather, we can try and rely on the ground, because the horizon disappears over clouds. When the weather is clear, while the weather is clear, go outside, look at the the stars. If they are flickering, if they are really bright, then it's windy up there. And if it's really clear up there, and northern lights, if they are really running around over there in that direction, then we may get a northwest wind. If the northern lights are more over in that direction and they run around that way, then that means we may get a southeast wind. Those of us who are older, this is a day-to-day thing now. You all believe it, we don't know it. Myself anyway, I don't know it. And you know things using this. What if the batteries run out when you're out hunting, and then you look up and down and over there? That's what we're trying to teach you. A lot of us never used this yet. Never started using it yet. And we don't want this to take over our knowledge, our real knowledge. The real knowledge of Inuit who were older than we are is what we are relying on. And I also experienced with radios. The Cape Dorset area, I would rely on their forecasts more when we got radios that could go far, because they would experience a certain type of weather that would always come to Iqaluit area. Like if it's a northwest wind or a southeast wind or a west wind, and 24 hours later they would be experiencing it first. And you'll start to realize these things. You have to know what the weather is like in other communities. And I won't, like nobody will be telling you what to do. It's up to you. It's like you don't have a father that can show you what to do. So you have to learn all this yourself. And that's what we're trying to help you learn. A bit of knowledge from us. And a lot of times I don't like to hear people talking too loud. And once a person starts talking loud, it's like he thinks he's talking true. Like, for example, sons and daughters, you have to tell them the truth. And you have to always do that. I'm telling you things that I have experienced. Our day may be quite short, and I'm sure there'll be questions. I'll stop here for now.
Any questions? Couple of minutes.
Thank you
for that. I'm just wondering, with regards to, I appreciate the use of the traditional knowledge. Would you agree or disagree with the use of spot devices on the land?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that we use the technologies today. Spot devices, GPS, cell phone, whatnot. We're not against any of those. None of them. You want to use them? Yes. But he says, if you run out of battery, what can you do? That's it. Yes, you can use the spot device. I think he got one.
This is what was just mentioned. And this is something that you can use to tell where you are at now. Using the numbers. Just by using the numbers on the map. As soon as I put the numbers on there, it can help you stay on safe ice. And if someone searching by airplane, the numbers are always changing there. And as soon as I hit a button, it can show me where I am on the map using numbers. We always bring this. And also the spot device that you was asked about. We generally bring both of them now. Modern Inuit do that. That's a good question you asked. That's what we use today. We believe in them. But then we always have to remember, what if we drop it? What if the batteries run out? And it can cause us to become lost. That's what we have learned as well. Another thing that we've learned as well today, there is something that was put up outside of Iqaluit. Something that was installed, and now we can use this. We rely on this now because of that thing that was put on the land. If I turn this on, and I can ask, can anybody hear me? And it's very convenient to use now if we're traveling to not too distant area. They're going to be putting up another one. I think he's talking about a repeater. What I said earlier, not all of us use these, like myself for example. I don't know how to use them. I don't use them yet. But with the spot device, we really like them. And a lot of times we could not afford things like that. People are different. People will listen to direction, while other people will just ignore direction. In the red marked areas are dangerous areas, and the blue or green areas are the safe areas. And the red area is where people have died. But they're on the device, so I can't really show you.